Here is something nobody wants to admit. You've been lied to about failure your entire life. 2 years ago, I launched something I'd been working on for months. I was convinced it was going to be the breakthrough. Launch day came, and it flopped. Hard. I remember sitting there at 2 a.m., staring at the numbers, feeling that familiar knot in my stomach. You know the one, that sinking feeling that whispers, maybe you're just not good enough. I wanted to delete everything and pretend it never happened. That's what I'd always done before. Hide the failure, move on, don't talk about it. But this time, I did something different. And that decision changed everything. Because here's what I realized. Every successful person you admire didn't succeed despite their failures. They succeeded because of them. The only difference between someone crushing it in your field and someone who gave up isn't talent. It's not luck. It's how they process the inevitable setbacks. And today, I'm going to show you the exact system I used and that elite performers across every industry use to transform failure from a dead end into a competitive advantage. No motivational fluff, no believe in yourself nonsense. Just a practical framework you can use starting today. Let's get into it. Section 1. The failure myth debunked. Right now, somewhere in the world, someone is sitting on an idea they'll never pursue because they're terrified of failing. Another person just quit after their first setback because they think failure means they weren't meant to succeed. This is the failure myth in action, and it's destroying potential every single day. We've been socially conditioned to view failure as an endpoint. You fail a test, you're a bad student. Your business fails, you're a bad entrepreneur. Your relationship fails, you're unlovable. It's binary, it's final, and it's complete garbage. Here's what actually happens in the real world. Thomas Edison didn't invent the light bulb. He discovered 10,000 ways not to make a light bulb, and then he found one way that worked. James Dyson created 5,127 prototypes before his bagless vacuum cleaner worked. J.K. Rowling was rejected by 12 publishers before Harry Potter saw the light of day. These aren't exceptions, they're the rule. Failure isn't the opposite of success. It's literally part of the process. It's data. It's feedback. It's the universe telling you, not like that. Try this instead. But we treat it like a scarlet letter instead of a roadmap. The people who win aren't the ones who never fail. They're the ones who fail forward, who extract value from every miss, who understand that iteration isn't optional. It's how everything worthwhile gets built. Section 2. Reframing setbacks. The catalyst mindset. Okay, so if failure is just data, why does it feel so terrible? Let me tell you what happened after that launch I mentioned. For about 48 hours, I was completely paralyzed. I couldn't work, couldn't focus. Every time I opened my laptop, I felt this wave of shame. My brain was screaming, "See, I told you this wouldn't work. You should have known better." Maybe you felt this too. That voice that turns one failed attempt into evidence that you're fundamentally broken. Here's what's actually happening. Your brain is wired for survival, not success. When you fail at something, your amygdala, the fear center of your brain, lights up like a Christmas tree. It's the same response you'd have to a physical threat. Your brain literally can't tell the difference between "I bombed that presentation" and "a tiger is chasing me." Both trigger the same fight-or-flight response. Both make you want to run and hide. This is where the catalyst mindset comes in. On hour 49 of my spiral, I forced myself to do something different. I opened a blank document and wrote at the top, what actually happened? Not how I felt about it, not what it meant about me, just the facts. And here's what I discovered. When you remove the emotion and look at the data, failure stops being this massive character indictment and becomes a list of specific, fixable problems. Instead of, "I'm not cut out for this," I had, "My messaging was unclear to my target audience. I launched without validating demand first. My timing coincided with 2 major holidays. I had 0 social proof built in." See the difference? One is a dead end. The other is a diagnosis. This is the catalyst mindset. Every time something doesn't go as planned, you're at a fork in the road. One path leads to shame, avoidance, and giving up. The other leads to analysis, adjustment, and another attempt. The shift isn't about positive thinking. It's about asking different questions. Not, why am I such a failure? But, what specific assumptions did I make that turned out to be wrong? Not, why does this always happen to me? But, what variables can I control differently next time? Not, should I give up? But, what did I just learn that I didn't know before? And here's the key, and I can't stress this enough. You have to do this consciously. Your brain will default to the shame spiral if you let it. You need to override that pattern with deliberate questions that extract value. I started keeping what I call a failure debrief document. Every time something doesn't work, I fill it out within 72 hours. We'll get to the exact template in a minute, but this single practice has been worth more than any course I've ever taken. Because the moment you reframe a setback as information, you transform it from something that happens to you into something that works for you. That failed launch, it taught me more about my market than 6 months of research. My next attempt had a 400% better conversion rate, not because I got smarter overnight, but because I stopped treating failure like the end and started treating it like feedback. That's the catalyst mindset in action. Section 3. The science of iteration. The 72-hour process. Let's talk about why this actually works, not from a motivational standpoint, but from a scientific one. Every single breakthrough in human history came from the scientific method. And the scientific method is literally designed around failure. You form a hypothesis, you test it, it doesn't work, you adjust and test again. Scientists don't sit around crying about failed experiments. They document what happened, analyze why, and design the next test. Failure isn't failure. It's a data point. James Dyson didn't make 5,127 prototypes because he was incompetent. He made them because he understood that each failure was eliminating one wrong answer and getting him closer to the right one. But here's where most people, including past me, screw this up. They fail, they feel bad, they wait until the emotional sting fades, and then they try the exact same thing again, expecting different results. That's not iteration, that's insanity. After my launch disaster, I realized I needed a system. Not motivation, not willpower. A process I could follow even when I felt like crap. So I built what I called the 72-hour productive failure process. And I'm going to give you the exact framework I use. Here's why 72 hours matter. If you wait longer, your brain starts rewriting the story. You forget crucial details, you rationalize, you let emotions cloud the data. But if you act within 72 hours, the information is fresh and your analysis is sharp. Within 72 hours of any setback, you do 3 things. First, the failure debrief. You open a document and write down exactly what happened, not how you feel about it, what actually occurred. You get objective. I use these prompts. What was my specific goal? What actions did I take? What was the actual result? Numbers, facts, observations. What external factors influenced the outcome? What was within my control versus outside my control? No drama, no self-judgment, just facts. This step alone is transformative because it breaks the emotional loop. When I did this for my failed launch, I realized that out of 15 things I thought went wrong, only 5 were actually within my control. That changed everything. Second, the gap analysis. Now you identify the specific gap between your expectation and reality. This is where you get surgical. I ask, which of my assumptions were proven wrong? What skill or knowledge was I missing? What did I underestimate or overestimate? Where was my strategy flawed? What worked that I should keep doing? Notice that last one. It's critical. Even in failures, something usually works. You need to identify that too. For my launch, the gap analysis revealed I assumed my audience wanted X, but they actually needed Y. I overestimated the power of features and underestimated the importance of social proof. My email sequence worked well, but my landing page messaging was confusing. I launched without a single testimonial or case study. These weren't character flaws, they were strategic errors, fixable ones. Third, the iteration plan. Based on what you learned, you document exactly what you'll do differently next time. Not a complete overhaul, targeted improvements. I limit myself to 1 to 3 specific adjustments per iteration. Why? Because if you try to change everything at once, you can't tell what's actually working. My iteration plan after that launch: validate the core idea with 10 target customers before building anything. Collect 5 testimonials or case studies before launching publicly. A/B test landing page messaging with small paid traffic before scaling. That's it. 3 focused changes. This whole process takes maybe an hour, but it's the difference between failing randomly and failing productively. I've used this framework for failed projects, rejected pitches, content that flopped, partnerships that didn't work out, everything. And I'm not exaggerating when I say it's been the highest ROI hour I spend. Because here's the truth: you're going to fail anyway. The question is whether you're going to learn from it. My next launch after implementing these 3 changes? 4x better results. Not because I suddenly became brilliant, but because I stopped winging it and started systematizing how I learn. Section 4. Building resilience. Now let's talk about the psychological side of this, because knowing the framework is one thing, but actually doing it when you're in the emotional trenches is another. Look, I'm going to be real with you. The first few times you try this process, it's going to feel forced, uncomfortable, maybe even a little stupid. When you're sitting there at 2 a.m. feeling like a complete failure, the last thing you want to do is open a document and analyze your assumptions. I get it. I've been there. But this is where resilience actually gets built. And resilience isn't something you're born with. It's something you build through practice. Carol Dweck's research on growth mindset proves this. People who believe their abilities can improve through effort outperform people with fixed mindsets who think talent is innate. But here's what most people miss. A growth mindset isn't about believing you'll succeed eventually. It's about believing that struggle and failure are part of the process, not evidence that you're on the wrong path. It's permission to suck while you're learning. Let me give you the 3 psychological shifts that made this actually work for me. 1. Separate your identity from your outcomes. This was huge. I had to stop saying, I'm a failure, and start saying, I tried something that didn't work. You're not a failure because something you tried didn't work. You tried something that didn't work. That's it. The experiment failed. You didn't. I know this sounds like semantics, but the language you use with yourself matters. Your brain believes what you tell it repeatedly. 2. Practice self-compassion strategically. This isn't soft, it's strategic. Research shows that people who beat themselves up after failures are actually less likely to try again. They associate the activity with pain, so they avoid it. Self-compassion isn't about lowering standards, it's about treating yourself like you'd treat a friend who's struggling. When that launch failed, a friend asked me, if I had just launched something and it flopped, what would you tell me? I immediately said, that's how you learn. The first version is never perfect. What did you discover? Then he said, so why aren't you telling yourself that? Gut punch. But he was right. Now when something doesn't work, I literally ask myself, what would I tell someone I care about in this situation? Then I say that to myself. It sounds cheesy, but it works. 3. Keep a failure data bank. This is my secret weapon. I keep a running document of every lesson learned from every setback. Over time, patterns emerge. You start seeing your growth. You have proof that failure has been making you better. I look back at my failure data bank from 2 years ago, and I'm almost embarrassed by some of the insights. They seem so obvious now, but that's the point. I only know them because I failed my way into understanding them. Your data bank becomes evidence that you're evolving. When you're in the middle of a new failure, you can look back and see, oh, I felt this way a year ago about X, and now X is easy for me. This too shall pass. The resilience muscle grows every time you choose to analyze instead of agonize, to iterate instead of quit, to extract lessons instead of excuses. And here's the beautiful thing. It compounds. The more you practice productive failure, the less scary it becomes. Eventually, and I'm living proof of this, you start seeking it out because you know that's where the growth happens. I now deliberately put myself in situations where I might fail publicly. Not because I'm brave, because I know that's where I'll learn the most valuable lessons. That's not fearlessness. That's a trained response built through repetition. Section 5. Your Productive Failure Playbook. All right, let's make this concrete. Here's exactly what you're going to do after this video ends. And I need you to actually do this, not just nod along and close the tab. Because here's what I've learned. Information without implementation is just entertainment. Step 1. Identify one failure from your past month. Right now, before you do anything else, think of something that didn't go as planned. Could be big or small, doesn't matter. A project that flopped, a conversation that went sideways, content that got crickets, a pitch that got rejected. Got one? Good. Step 2. Run it through the 72-hour process. Grab a notebook, open a blank document, or use whatever note-taking app you prefer. Right now, not later. Now. Write these 3 headers. Failure debrief, what actually happened. Gap analysis, where things broke down. Iteration plan, what I'll do differently. Under failure debrief, write down the facts. What was your goal? What did you actually do? What was the result? Strip out the emotion and just document reality. Under gap analysis, identify the specific gaps. Which assumptions were wrong? What did you underestimate? What was within your control that you could have done differently? And here's the key. What actually worked that you should keep doing? Under iteration plan, write 1 to 3 specific changes you'll make next time. Not a complete overhaul, just targeted adjustments based on what you just learned. This should take you 30 to 60 minutes. Do it in one sitting. Write it down. Your brain processes differently when you externalize it. There's something about getting it out of your head and onto paper that breaks the emotional loop and turns chaos into clarity. Step 3. Take the 30-day Productive Failure Challenge. Here's where it gets real. For the next 30 days, I want you to commit to trying something that has a legitimate chance of not working. Not something safe, not something you're already good at. Something where failure is a genuine possibility. Ask for the meeting you've been avoiding. Launch the project you've been perfecting. Have the difficult conversation. Apply for the opportunity you think you're not ready for. Post the content you're scared to share. Whatever it is that you've been putting off because you're afraid of failing, do that. And when it doesn't go perfectly, because it won't, you run it through the framework. You fill out the 3 sections, you extract the lessons, you iterate, then you try again. Here's what I want you to understand. Every successful person you admire has failed more than you. They've been rejected more. They've screwed up more. They've lost more money, more time, more sleep. I've had projects fail that cost me thousands of dollars. I've had ideas flop in front of thousands of people. I've had partnerships blow up. I've had launches that made me want to quit. But every single one taught me something I couldn't have learned any other way. And the only reason I'm here talking to you right now is because I stopped running from failure and started running toward it with a clipboard. The difference between someone who makes it and someone who doesn't isn't that they're immune to failure. It's that they've learned to metabolize it, to transform it, to use it as fuel. You can do the same. You just need to start treating failure like what it actually is, the most valuable feedback system you have access to. So here's your challenge. Go fail at something this week, deliberately, strategically. Then extract every ounce of value from that experience and use it to make your next attempt better. That's how you build something real. That's how you make progress that actually sticks. The framework is in your head now. The only question left is, are you going to use it? Stop avoiding failure, start mining it for gold. Now go do the work.